All right. Hey, welcome back to the Front. Now, if you've been following this podcast, this is all about tools for tomorrow's top agents. Now, listen, we know that you've got lots of stuff coming your way. I mean, everybody wants to invite you to their event. They want you to listen to their podcast. They want you to take their course. And I get it. You're flooded with a lot of information. So this podcast is all about helping give you little tools, little nuggets that you can implement into your agency today. And heck, if you found this podcast and you're not even an agent, maybe you're a business owner, I think these things can help you as well. So I want to launch today's episode by asking you an important question. And I answer to yourself, obviously, but you may not like the answer to it. And here's the question. The question is, do you ever find yourself at the end of the day feeling like you've gotten nothing done? Probably the answer to that for a lot of you is yes. You know, you get up, you're ready, you're going to conquer the day. You get in the office and all of a sudden you look up and it's lunch and you've not accomplished anything that you've wanted to accomplish for the day. You say, okay, hey, after lunch, I'm going to knock all this stuff out. All of a sudden you look up and it's 5:00, right? And you've got your wife, you've got your husband calling. When you're going to be home? What are we going to do for dinner? And you still not knocked off anything on your list. And you found out that the reason why is because you're busy doing what I call $10 an hour work. You're doing stuff that is taking your time away from what I call $100 an hour work. So today's episode is how to do $100 an hour work and then how to deal with the $10 an hour work. So no $10 hour work allowed. How do you optimize your time, man, to do the most important things for your business, for your agency? But then how do you ensure that those little things that actually are a big deal, the $10 an hour work, happen? So for that, I want to bring on my friend, my business partner, Mr. Rob Emler. Rob, how are you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, brother. How are you?
Doing good. Dude, man, how was that intro? Do you like the intro? Do you like my intro skills?
I love the intro skills, man. I love the enthusiasm, the positivity. All the vibes are right.
Like it. I'm fishing for compliments and doing well.
Yeah.
I think. Let me introduce you to Rob. Rob is a captive agent out of Illinois. He's been an agent for multiple years. And Rob is not only a captive agent, man, he's done all the awards and the travel and built this amazing team. But Rob is also my business partner. He is one of the owners of Front Runner, which is the producer of this podcast. So Rob, in part, thanks for letting us do this, man. So he owns this. He's a part owner. He's an owner as well of Reviewsy that you see behind. But the real reason I wanted to bring Rob on today is because he's also an owner of a company called Agency Team Pro, which I'm going to tell you, and we're going to talk about this later. If you're not using an Agency Team Pro-like company to handle your $10 an hour work, you're missing it. So, but I wanted to bring on Rob because one thing I've known about you, man, as we've gotten to know each other, is that you are incredibly good at staying focused on the big picture things about agency and figuring out how the sort of routine $10 an hour work gets done as well. Now, I will say, I'm not saying that little stuff is not important stuff, right? But as an agent, your time is your time is limited, right? And so, man, Rob, I wanted to bring you on and talk to you about this because I've looked at your life and I'm like, man, I got to be more like Rob. Yeah, I got to figure out. I've got to figure out how to do less $10 an hour work and how that when I show up to work every day, how do I do the things that just drive my business forward? How do I grow it? And that means I've got to think about my time differently, right? So, Rob, I've got some questions I'm going to throw at you, okay? And we're going to see how you handle them, but all is good. So the first thing I want to ask you is this, all right? And again, talking to agents every day, there are a lot of agents that I'm seeing, they kind of wasting time doing $10 an hour work, right? So I want to ask you, because again, I'm not an agent. Where do you see agents wasting their time every day, right? Or where do you see them burning a bunch of their time? And those are things that they know don't bring a ton of new value to the agency, right? So tell me about some things that you've seen. Maybe it's in your agency, maybe it's in agencies of your friends or people that you network with, that they're just spending a ton of time and it's maybe even a little bit wasteful.
Sure. No, first and foremost, man, I really appreciate you having me on. I'm really excited to talk to you today. I think reflecting back just my time in agency, one thing that I think a lot of people listening to this will understand is there's no way to anticipate, how many things are going to be thrown at you
Yeah.
before you sit in that chair? You know what I mean? And on a day-to-day, some of those mundane things that kind of slow you down, they're just getting tossed at you so constantly, right? And it can be so
Yeah.
easy to be consumed by it. And honestly, and a lot of times justify it, right? Because you're doing something for a customer, you're doing something for your team, you're doing something thinking about your business and how you can grow it, how you can make it more efficient. And then before you even finish that thought, something else is getting tossed at you. It
Yeah.
is
Sure.
it is a constant. It's never ending. And I think just my own personal story, the first 3 years, it was me just constantly spinning plates here, spinning plates there, just making sure everything's going. And it's exhausting. And until you kind of step back and instead of working in the business and trying to do everything and make sure this is good, this is taken care of, that's taken care of, take a step back and work on the business instead of in the business. And part of doing that is recognizing, okay, what is eating up most of my day? What's eating up my day? What's eating up my team members' day? What's stopping us from staying in that zone, right? That pocket to where we're the most productive. We're, aligned with our mission and our vision for what this should look like. We're meeting the service standards. We're meeting the sales standards. We're everything that your objective, everything that you're trying to achieve, I should say. That's where all your energy and focus should be going.
Yeah.
So at that 3-year mark, I had to take a hard look in the mirror and say, like, this isn't sustainable because I'm going to die. You know what I mean? I can't do
Sure.
all this. And then also, like, what's the point of me having a team? If
Oh,
I
yeah.
can't do them properly because I'm just tied down with the minutia of the day, I'm not doing right by them. And if I'm not doing right by them, then that's in turn going to affect my customers. So slowing down, taking that hard look in the mirror, writing things down and saying, okay, let's prioritize and let's map out what a great day looks like. And let's strive for that every single day.
Dude, I like that. You said, let's write it down. Let's map it out.
Sure.
You said about the 3-year mark is you're an agency, you're a new agency owner, you're doing everything. And I think our listeners, watchers, wherever you're catching this, can relate to that. They walk in, boom, they get hit. Right.
Yeah.
And it's almost like my team would do this without me, but when I walk in, they include me. So, like, what are a couple of those? Maybe give a couple of those things that that you would like, maybe in your first 2 or 3 years, that you just did a lot of this stuff that you don't do anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was early on. It's customers just always wanted to talk to you, and don't get me wrong, there is a high level of importance when it comes to that, right? I mean, you got to make sure the people that are paying the bills are taken care of. But I would say about 20% of those calls were worth it. The other 80% of the calls could have been handled by somebody else.
Yeah.
So that was a big thing to where it's like, these are just time suckers is the wrong word to say it, but
Right, but everybody knows when you said that word, they're like, oh yeah, I would never say it out loud, but that's exactly how I feel.
Yes, 80% of that could have been, subbed out to one of my team members. Like, we didn't need to have a 25-minute conversation when all you wanted was an ID card and you wanted to meet me. So that was a big one. And then claims was another big one, right?
Oh yeah.
Somebody gets into it and, you want to be there for them, you want to empathize with them, and you want to walk them through that process and give them a great experience. But, the ripple effect of one question can lead into this, and then you start looking into it, and then you start calling the proper channels on your end as a business owner to make sure this gets resolved. And then by the time you look up, it's lunchtime. Another thing, underwriting, that was another big one. Billing questions. I mean, you name it, all of the little things, right? All important things, but just little things that just add up every single day. You got an email that needs to get addressed. You got staff members that got, oh, I'm stuck in this process with this customer and I don't know what to do here. And yeah.
So would you say do you think ego plays into effect maybe with agents? They're like, hey, I know how to take care of my customers better than anybody else, so that's what I'm going to do.
Sure. Yeah. I wouldn't put or dismiss something like that. Absolutely.
Sure.
Because I mean, most of the time, I mean, if you're in that seat, you're a highly qualified, capable person.
Right.
And chances are, depending on the background and where you come from, most of the time, everyone does everything themselves. It's one of the things that's tough about this job is it's hard to teach. The transfer of knowledge that's in your brain and giving that to your team members.
Yeah.
That's tough, right?
It's huge.
If that isn't properly served up to your team members and there's some consistency with it, you're just left with frustration as a business owner thinking like, okay, well, I don't have time to get into implementing that whole thing, so I'll just do it myself.
Oh, that's huge right there. You just said something, man, I wish I had a gong. I could gong it, right? It's the transfer of knowledge.
Yeah.
And it's almost lazier to say, I'll just do it myself. Like you think you're taking initiative and I'm working so hard and all these things, right? But actually that's kind of lazy, right? Because it's actually harder. And I'm not calling it you an agent. If you're doing a bunch of stuff, agent, I'm not calling you lazy, I promise. But what I am saying is that it is harder to, like what Rob, what you said to transfer that knowledge and to do it in a way that they can start to do that, which then releases you, right? That takes work. And it's true. It's probably easier up front for you just to do it. But in the long run, it's not.
Yeah, but as that snowball continues to roll down the hill, right? It always starts small, but then as it goes down the hill, it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and it'll get to a point where it's just unmanageable, and like you said, it is hard to, stop taking those calls, stop addressing that, stop doing this claim follow-up, stop worrying about this billing situation, stop worrying, it is, because you have to separate yourself from that, kind of give up a little bit of that control and really dedicate some time to developing a real system, developing a real process, reinforcing that with your team, saying, hey, when this happens, this is what we do, this is when we do it, and this is how we do it, right? It's a lot easier said than done, but to your point, if you don't do it, you're kind of just taking the easy way out, and there's only one person that's going to suffer from that ultimately, and it's you.
And that's you. That's right.
It's you. And then eventually it's going to bleed off onto your team. And eventually after that, it's going to bleed off onto your culture. And then you just have an unsustainable mess on your hands.
Yeah. I used to be a pastor. Rob, you knew that. I mean, you and I have been buddies. I was pastor for a long time. And we had a sort of a saying inside the pastorate, which saying it actually sounds kind of weird now outside of it. But we used to say, my job is to protect the package, which sounds kind of weird, outside of the church world. My mind goes places. But we would say that you got to protect the package. Well, what was that? The package was the message that you needed to deliver to people, whether it was a sermon or a homily or, devotion or whatever it is, whatever denomination or stance, if you're that way. That was what I had to protect. But what would happen in the church world is that everybody would come in, they'd be fighting and offloading their problems on you. And that's fine. That's what I'm there for, right? But there had to be moments when I had to protect the package. I had to make sure that I had to stay clear enough up top in my head that I could actually deliver a message that was well thought through, compelling, and that people could practically use it in the next day. And I have to help think, after listening to you, that's essentially the same thing in insurance, is that you're there to insure lives. You're there to grow a business where you can insure more and more lives. You can make more and more money. You can help your team to build careers. And ultimately, that's what's suffering if you decide to not protect the package.
You got it.
Right? You decide that I'm going to do $10 an hour work, right? Versus $100 an hour work. And you mentioned some of those things, right? It's claims, it's BOD task, it's dealing with payment issues. It's the meet and greet, right? And you even said, no, hey, I'm not saying those things are not important, but the reality is if you're spending your entire day doing that stuff, you might be saving a little money, maybe, but really you're hurting yourself. You're limiting the growth. And if you're sitting there as an agent owner, you're like, why can't I get my agency to grow? I'm working so hard. Maybe it's not an issue with that. Maybe the issue is that you're just not working smart. You're not doing that. So Rob, that leads me to my next thing. Okay. So agents sitting there, they're listening. They're like, you know what, man, you're right. I have a huge to-do list. I'm going to conquer the day. Just like you said, hey, I'm going to map out what it looks like to win the day, which was really good advice. And they're sitting there like, all right, I need to outsource some of the stuff, right? I need to automate it, right? So how can automation and outsourcing help an agent say, I'm only going to do $100 an hour work?
Sure. So I'll tell you a quick story. When I first got started, prior to opening up the office, I had an older business owner talk to me, and he's like, you're going to have two problems in this business, and they're going to be a constant. And I was like, okay. And he goes, number one is team members. All right. And I was like, well, I can't really relate to that. Like, I play a part in a big team to where, take a big part in leading them. That's not really an issue. Never an hard time finding anybody either that kind of catches the vision of this. Like, I'm surrounded by a whole bunch of people right now. What are you talking about, man? And then the second thing that he said didn't make sense, and it'll tie in, I promise, up until that 3-year mark, to where he said 90% of the problems that you're facing every single day when it comes to your customers always come from the same 10% of people.
Yeah.
And I was like, what does that mean? So kind of going back to what we just talked about, the BOD, the underwriting, the claims, the intros, the onboarding calls, the this, the that, especially when it comes to the mundane things that we don't like in our office, like the billing and stuff like that, the monotonous stuff. It's always those 10% that take up the 90% of your top team members, your highest paid team members, your MVPs in the office. They're always taking up all of their valuable time. And if they're taking up those valuable time from that team member, then it's not delivering on that experience that you want.
Right.
Yeah, man, it's crazy talking about it now, because it's almost, it just rings true,
Yeah. It's like second nature to you now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, taking those responsibilities away from your top paid employees, or you, and delegating that or outsourcing it, whether it's to ATP or another company that works with your office and you kind of like it better for you, that's fine. Whatever you can do to position yourself every day to win, and you can position your team every day to win, deliver on that experience that, like you said, this is just a business to where we sell car insurance, and there's nothing sexy about car insurance, life insurance, health insurance, home insurance, that stuff. But you have the privilege to really give a customer an amazing experience to where, oh, this isn't, just another thing that I get offline. There was something different about this office. There was something different about that particular team member, like, oh, this is so so outside of what I know insurance to be, kind of kicking it old school. And like, instead of focusing on the commoditized industry that we are in today's day and age, go back to the olden days where it's all relational. You want to be that first call when life changes. You want to be that first call. You want to be that person guiding your customers through what this is going to look like. That's the whole reason they pay us every single month. It's to deliver on those promises. And when you're caught up, again, I don't mean to keep circling back to this, but when you're caught up in all of those compounding daily tasks, you can't really deliver that. You can't.
Huge.
So I think outsourcing that to a company, whether it's us or anyone else, could be an absolute game changer for a lot of people. So you can start leading your business and running it the way that you want, instead of the business running you.
Yeah. Yeah. You said something really good there. You said, man, we are in a highly commoditized business, right? You can get insurance from anywhere, right? So why do they want to come to you? Well, they want to come to you because it's a different kind of experience. Well, you're only going to have bandwidth for that if you decide that I'm going to start asking who, not how. There's a book that I'm getting ready to finish. It's called Who, Not How. It was actually suggested by my executive lead here at one of my print shops that I own as well. She said, Adam, you need Who, Not How. And I said, okay, I'm going to pick up that book. So I've been reading this book, and I've got 2 pages left. It's phenomenal, right? Because this is what it talks about. You need to stop asking how to get things done, but who needs to do these things so that you can give people what's most important, and that's your $100 an hour work time. If you're going to deliver that amazing experience, you can't be burned out waiting on the phone with claims for an hour, or maybe longer. And you know what? I will even say this. I don't think it's just like those kinds of things. I think there's a lot of things, how often are you checking your email during the day? How often are you getting up and asking people what are they doing in their office, right? I think there's a million little tasks that you can say, how do I get somebody to do these things so I can sit down and have time to be relational? It honestly reminds me of a conversation we had a few episodes ago with my friend Scott Grates. I know you know Scott way better. Heck, you introduced Scott Grates to me.
Love that guy. Great guy. Yeah, I hope to be like him when I grow up one day.
Me too, dude. Me too, man. Dude, he got it going on. And his whole thing is, man, if you're doing referrals right, you may even have to ask for leads.
Right.
You're just going to get those. So here's the deal. You were talking about automating tasks and, doing all these things, right? You brought up Agency Team Pro, which is what I really want to talk about, right? If you're talking about tools for tomorrow's top agents, you need to be using a service like Agency Team Pro, right? So Rob, if I know people have probably heard about it, but tell us again, how does Agency Team Pro help an agent to really only do $100 an hour work?
Yeah, go
And
ahead.
what do y'all do? What's it cost? And how can it help us solve this problem?
Yeah, absolutely. So Agency Team Pro is owned by myself and a couple other agents who all have experience running businesses like ours, along with kind of understanding our daily struggles. So that's kind of like the heart behind it. And, all of our backgrounds and experiences in this business kind of helped us figure out, okay, where are the holes and how do those holes need to be filled? And going back to what that old agent told me a long time ago is finding those right team members to put in that position that is going to properly take care of that work. So we identified some of those things and said, okay, well, let's be the conduit to provide licensed individuals that are trained, they know what they're doing into our system, and they can kind of take all of the heavy lifting, everything that slows down the day-to-day operations, remove that off agents, remove that off team members so they can drive the ship how they want. So, I mean, we take care of everything from, your auto and fire underwriting folders, your SFPP folders, your foam folders, your late pays, credit card expirations, return payments. I mean, DSS, forms, policies for mailed and issued. I mean, premium increases, premium decreases, and way more. I'm not going to just list off everything, but, all of that stuff that your MVPs, right? I think of my MVP. Her name is Maggie. Literally, without Maggie, my life would be awful. But Maggie can't thrive. Maggie can't leverage her personality. Maggie can't connect with the customers, I guess, at the level of which I expect her to every single day in and day out if she's so consumed with all of these things, right?
Yeah.
Going back to, she's spending the most of her time throughout her day focusing on those 10% of those repeat offenders that continue to call in with the same problems every month, when 90% of my book of business, who I want her connecting with, it's not happening because all of this stuff that kind of running down that list that I just mentioned, it gets in the way of that. So if you can leverage a company like us, so you can take that person in your office, maybe from, yeah, she's great, or he's great, or they're great, whatever, let's turn them into, machines, and let them really play to their strengths and leverage the opportunity that's in front of them instead of just getting caught down in all this stuff.
Yeah. But Rob, isn't that why I pay my service team?
Yeah. But are you getting everything that you need out of them? Are they happy, or do they like their job, or is it just checking boxes every day and just wait until the bell hits 5 o'clock and they can't wait to leave?
Right.
The big difference between, I forget if it was Coulter or if it was Scott, when they were talking about, the opportunity that's in front of them every single day.
Yeah.
It's either to be a 9 to 5 and they're just going to check those boxes and they're going to do everything they can just to, all right, let me get through this. Let me get through this. As opposed to looking at this, half glass, or what is it? Glass half full.
Glass half full. Yeah.
Positioning yourself every day to view this what it is. No, everything that you do has the ability to change one of your customers' lives. Every conversation means something. You know what I mean? Every interaction means something.
Absolutely.
If you're looking at it through those lenses, you're going to have two completely different outcomes compared to the person that's just checking. So that was one of the main things, is how can we become more efficient and just let our team members thrive and delegate this work onto somebody else that is good at it, right? Because you do have certain team members that do really well with this kind of work, and that's all they want, and that's fine, But I think for a lot of people that are customer faces, talking to our people every day, they're not usually those people. They're more the relational type. So let's let them play to their strengths and win every day instead of just doing a whole bunch of stuff no one likes doing.
We get something like Agency Team Pro to handle all of those tasks, right? So I sign up with you guys, and are they my employee? Are they your employee?
Yeah, great question. They're your employee. They're your employee. The only thing
they're on my payroll, all that good stuff.
You got it. You got it.
Interesting, right? And then, but Agency Team Pro's already taken care of all. Like, do I have to train them and get them to do all, like, take them through all the stuff, or are they just ready to go?
Most of the time, they are absolutely ready to go. They're licensed. They're proficient in their systems. They know what they're doing. Again, so all the valuable time that you have throughout your day while you're spinning all those plates, one thing you don't have to worry about is training one of our team members that we help you out with, getting them up to speed. They're already up to speed.
Yeah.
They already know everything. It's a plug and play. So,
yeah. And it's a fraction of the cost, I think, right? Of having a team member sitting there and kind of like you said, right? They're kind of doing the little things, but then maybe they're, not optimizing their time, right? I think you actually save money by having what you would call a remote team member.
Absolutely. Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're in New York City, you're in California, and everywhere in between. It's going to be a very cost-effective solution to really see a substantial impact in your office pretty quick, which is
Wow.
great.
I actually want to throw up their website. Listen, if you're watching this or if you're listening, it's agencyteampro.com. That's so easy to remember. agencyteampro.com. You'll find next steps right there on their website. I'm telling you, if you are doing all the things that he listed in-house, you're wasting time and you're wasting money. You need to understand your service folks can be some of your biggest sales driving force. They can be the ones teeing up life appointments. I mean, you want more life appointments? Get all this BOD stuff away. Let Agency Team Pro do that through one of the remote team members. And then guess what? Now your team members got more opportunities to slow down on the phone with someone who calls in. They look inside of their profile, their account, and they say, hey, you know what? We don't have any life insurance for you. Let's talk about that, right? And be able to queue up a conversation, whether it's for them or whether they're setting an appointment for one of your producers. That's the kind of stuff I don't understand. Your sales force can be driven and motivated by your service team if they are doing $100 an hour work, right? Mm-hmm. They should be doing, because everybody has $100 an hour work and everybody has $10 an hour work. And so for me, when I was introduced to this concept of remote team members, I said, boy, that's it. That's it. Let's, then they can focus on the higher level stuff that grows your business, right? So that's agencyteampro.com. There's next steps on there. Man, I know the folks over there, they kill it. Man, Rob, we actually have a lot of people at Front Runner that use Agency Team Pro, and man, they say nothing but good. So good job on that, for real.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate
sure.
it. One thing that I wanted to add as well, when you were kind of talking through that, is we help out a wide variety, whether you're just getting started or you're a very tenured person. And I know based on market area and where you're at in the country, obviously you could have less or more team members. But another thing that I wanted to add on is we also have this really, really cool thing called team member timeshare, which is if you're one of those smaller agents, maybe, right? And maybe you're down a few team members and you need some help answering phones. Our team member timeshare program can step in and help you provide that licensed individual, again, who's trained. And they can do things like take calls for 2 hours, right? If you got a couple people left and they're busy assisting other customers, maybe one sales, one service, something along those lines, you don't want to bog down your service person. Let us step in and take care of 2 hours of just answering your phone or 4 hours of answering the phone. And they can do things from answering the phones, added autos, swapping out vehicles, mortgage changes, address changes, renters rewrites, reinstating, and everything in between. This is your dedicated person for 4 hours that, hey, if you just want this person calling people that, just signed up a couple months ago and you want to try to get referrals, you want to try to get Google reviews, you want to set up an IFR, an appointment, whatever you'd like to do. This is your dedicated team member for 2 or 4 hours. So again, you can kind of use us for a lot of different things, whether you're an established office and you have some of your high paid people focusing on that $10 an hour work instead of doing $100 an hour work, or if you're a team member, or if you're an agency or an office that, man, I kind of need somebody right now to step in for 2 to 4 hours a day. And I kind of need somebody to do all the things, maybe fill in some of those gaps that the other team members are missing right now. It could be a great resource for you, and we'd love to help.
Team member timeshare, which is great. So it's not, it's different than the remote team member, right? Yep. It's literally what it says. It's a team member timeshare, right? They're just little smaller chunks of time, but they can do lots of different operations in your office. Boom. Now you've got more time for $100 an hour work. So, all right. Yep. So I've done this. Now I'm an agent. I've got free time. All right. You've intentionally started to design your time to focus on your $100 an hour work. You've got people in place for $10 an hour work, and it's time to grow the business. All right. So give me some suggestions. Again, I'm not an agent. I feel like I could be a pretty good team member by this point, but I'm not an agent. Now you've got some free time on your hands. What are some of the best ways that agents can now use their $100 an hour time? Are there some things that you've seen talking to other agents or you've done yourself that now with that free time, you can do this to start growing your business?
Sure. I think going back to earlier, once you take that step and you kind of outsource this, you're going to be left with time because you're not doing the things that you were usually doing. It really gives you the ability to sit down and map out what you want each day to look like, what you want your team members' day to look like, what you want your day to look like, what do you want where do you see the office being at this point in time? Where do you want to be next year? You can really sit down and reverse engineer. And we've talked to a lot of different people over the past, 3-4 years to where, they've said thank you because I never had this time before. And now I'm running my business the way that I want to run my business. I'm able to invest in my team members the way that I want to. I'm able to reinforce so many different things, make changes that, every mountain that we all face looks pretty darn big until you start walking up the hill and you get to the top of it. And the scariest part is always that first step up the mountain.
That's right.
It's a game changer. So it's been a huge blessing to be on the receiving end of some of those conversations and being a part of something that really helps team members and it helps agents run their businesses the way that they want to.
Yeah. Wow. So all of a sudden now you've got this free time. You start investing in your staff members. You start vision cast, right? Like how many agents actually not only set goals, but you sit down and you talk with your team about them. You track them, you put them in place, right? You maybe institute a software like FrontRunner to help, gamify it in some way, right? Track it, put it up on big screens. Now you've got time to do those things, right? Now you've got time to pick up a book like Referrals Done Right and say, you know what, I'm going to institute this in my agency. You've got time to go out and network and build relationships because you're not waiting on hold with claims. That's what it sounds like to me, that now you probably already know what you need to do to grow the business. You just don't have the time to do it. So now go do it. Go to that study group, man. Go to that conference, do that thing that's going to propel your business forward because you've decided now to do $100 an hour work versus $10 an hour work. And that's probably the biggest. Say what, Rob? I'm sorry.
Time is everything. It's the most valuable thing that we have, whether in your personal life or in business. You'll never be able to get that minute back. It's how you're allocating those minutes. And it's either one step closer to the mission and the vision and the goals that you have, or you're taking steps backwards. It's really how it shakes out. And I don't mean to, be blunt and direct about it, but if you're not, steps closer, you're just moving farther away from it. And the farther you go from it, the harder it is to dig out of that hole. That's for sure.
You know it. You think about this. The top 10 agents in your company, whatever company, do you know something that makes them exactly like you? They have the exact amount of hours in the day as you do. The exact amount. Like they don't have extra time. They don't have a 25th hour or 26th hour. And honestly, I've talked to these agents. Some of these agents use our software.
Yeah.
They don't have superpowers. They don't. Do you know what they do? They do $100 an hour work. And then they figure out how to equip, train, pass off, delegate, hire agency team pro, use other resources so that they can focus on what grows their business.
Yeah.
There's no difference. Yeah.
Automate and outsource. If it's not contributing to your most valuable activities you should be doing every day, then it's got to go.
That's right.
And a lot of folks could argue like, no, I want to be in the weeds with my customers when it comes to handling that claim process. And that's fine. That's all right if that's what you want to do. But if you're at a place right now, with this new year upon us and you want to make a change and you want to say, okay, this could be something that could help me get unstuck. This could be something that could help me thrive in the opportunity that's in front of me. This could help me free up some time so I can invest in my team members the way that I'd like to. We'd love to be a part of that journey with you.
Dang right. Dang right. So first steps, how does somebody, again, like I'm saying, take a step at a time.
Yeah.
And if you're not using a service like Agency Team Pro, this could be your very first step. How do they get started, Rob?
Yeah, go ahead and go to www.agencyteampro.com, schedule a call with us, and then we will go over everything that we do, how we do it, and we will kind of walk you through the next steps and what that looks like in finding that right person for your office, and see if it's a good fit for you or not. So
I love it.
Go to the website, schedule a call, find out all the information that you need, and we'd be happy to assist.
Boom. That's step number one.
Mm-hmm.
Every one of you needs to do that right now. Go check that out. And then I'm going to add a second step, and then we're going to call it a podcast. One of the most helpful things I've ever done is get a piece of paper out and write down all of the tasks that I do during the day that I don't like to do. All of the things that I don't feel fulfilled, I don't think are pushing my business forward in a meaningful way. And I just write those on a piece of paper. And then I do two things. I cross out the things that I don't need to do ever, and I just stop doing them, right? But then the things that have to happen, I'm going to stop asking, how do I get this done in the day? And I'm going to start asking who needs to do it. And then I'm going to find a resource like Agency Team Pro to do it. You get a single sheet of paper. I'm going to tell you what, in this new year, you do that. You do that, you keep it on your desk, and your goal over the next 3 months is to all of those things that you hate doing at the end of 3 months, you're no longer doing those things. I'm going to promise you that your business is going to grow. And heck, even if you're living in a world where you don't want your business to grow, that's fine. I know agents who aren't super concerned about growing their book. They just want more time with their family. They just don't want to feel stressed out at the end of the day, right? They don't want to feel like they're constantly behind. Heck, this is for you too. When you start to do $100 an hour work and only $10 an hour work. Rob, any final thoughts for us?
No, I think we covered most of it, man. Anyone listening to this, if you guys need anything or have any questions, obviously reach out to me directly if you need anything. But we'd love to be a part of your guys' success journey in figuring out how you can turn your office into exactly what you want and free up some time.
Boy, Rob, man, grateful, man. Thank you so much. And thank you for tuning in, for watching this wherever you're at. We know you have a lot of things to do, so that you spend some time with us makes this just really special for us. So thank you. A new episode coming at you next week. You don't want to miss it. We bring on guests that we think are going to bring deep value to your business, to your agency. So don't miss an episode of To the Front. And again, guys, until next time, take care.